But I promised 4:35 and it's 4:36, so let's go ahead and jump in. So we're going to talk about the 2021 Texas blackout. And the thing that was really shocking to me is that it was 4 minutes and 37 seconds away from a complete blackout, one that would have almost taken a month to recover from. And if you think of the gravity of what happened just in these 3 days, it cost more than Katrina, 70 people died. Yet, to me, I feel like I never got a real resolution on exactly what happens. And so, in order to understand this story, there are two components you need to understand. One is the frequency of alternating current, which the electricity coming into our house is alternating. It has a frequency associated with it. And if that frequency is off, so if it's typically around 60 hertz, and so if it's off, if it's below this threshold of 59.4, that it's actually doing damage to generators and to motors that are a part of the grid. And so as a result, the power plants themselves have their own circuit breakers, which are a little different than the ones we have in our house, where they look at frequency. And if you're below that threshold for more than 9 minutes, those trip off. And with those trip off, that essentially leads to the complete blackout of the grid. The other thing you need to know is that Texas is its own grid. And so as a result, it does not cross interstate lines, and so it does not need to follow interstate federal regulations. Now, they still have to follow EPA regulations and some other things, and I'll definitely would love, actually, Ruth or Don, if you guys want to comment any further just on that point before I move any further here. Nope. Okay, I'll keep going, actually. I realized, one other thing is we're moving around the scene together. So one thing I kind of wanted to do here is a little more experimental. So you should see my head here, my noggin moving around. If I can actually encourage everyone to sort of follow me, sort of like a Tonga line. This is going to be a little more experimental, but I think it's going to be kind of fun. So if everyone can just try to follow me around the scene, we're just going to sort of take a little bit of a tour and get used to seeing everyone and sort of get used to moving around together, because we are all together in this environment. And if you are in mobile AR, you are actually walking around your room. So we're just doing some circles around the content. Ruth and participant 13, I think I need to get you guys more involved here. I see you guys moving. I'm doing some circles. Okay. So you guys feel more comfortable, hopefully, moving around. So if you ever get lost, just look for the Texas ERCOT symbol, and that's essentially where we are. That's where we're talking about. So let's jump into the night of February 10th. February 10th, it got cold. No other way to say it. It's typically 54 in Texas, and it started to go below freezing, because the devil's in the details here. If we expand this out and look more from the side, you can see we have different data points here for Dallas, for Austin, for Houston. So Dallas was the first to go below freezing, followed by Austin, and then Houston towards the 15th. Now, on the demand side, people are using more electricity. They are using more heat, and they start at 40 gigawatts here on the beginning of the 10th. And by the 15th, they're up at 72 gigawatts. Now, 59 gigawatts was the last load, or the max load, during the 2011 winter outage, just as a reference point. So now on the capacity side, generating power. So 100% generation capacity on the 10th, and that is broken up into components of gas, wind, coal, solar, and nuclear. So that's the combination, or the percentages of a breakdown. And so on the 10th, we see the first sign of something going wrong. We see wind power is actually decreasing, and it drops almost 40%, down to 61% capacity. And so overall capacity is impacted at 94 gigawatts, 87% capacity. Now let's move things forward a bit more. And one thing about Texas is that it's its own, it is closest to a pure market economy for energy. And I don't know if purist is the right word, but one thing we can see very evidently, and you might have to bend down, and I'm actually bending down here, is that we can see the price on the 10th and 11th is around $30. And it jumps tenfold to the 13th, even though everyone still has power. So we're at 300. And then I want to show you what happened on the 14th and 15th, just to give you a sense of scale, of what is going on here. So look up, and you will see just how astronomical prices came for the settlement price of power. And so it reached $7,000 on the night of the 15th. And it is the night of the 15th or the early morning of the 15th, that things started to really go wrong. we officially drop below the threshold. We are at 67 gigawatts. Meanwhile, 72 is being requested. And a majority of that is driven by this decline in natural gas. However, I do want to point out that while natural gas is the major contributor to overall capacity, there were still some losses even on nuclear. One power plant went offline, so they're now at 74% capacity, some solar, some coal, some wind. So it is all these things in combination. You can't really just point one thing out, but these are all sort of contributing factors to not have enough capacity on that day. And so let's go back now, and I'm going to walk over to your right, my left, and back towards that red square where we first started. And we're going to take a look at the night of February 15th. It's 1:20 in the morning, and that's when they decide to turn off their first gigawatt worth of customers. So they officially make the order to turn them off. And the reason they do that is that when you turn off customers, you're shedding load or decreasing the demand on the system, and that helps the frequency go back up. And if more outages occur, that pushes the frequency down. And so right here, we're at 60 hertz, but the frequency is going down. So we lose another 1,000 customers, and then it's 1:51 in the morning. 1:51 on February 15th is when they decide to turn off 3 gigawatts worth of customers. And if you can imagine being down here, being in that room, as you are 9 minutes away from the whole grid going off, that these are very nerve-wracking minutes. Because it's at 1:55, you're still below this line. And that's when they order 3.5 gigawatts worth of customers to turn off. Now, as a reference point, 2011, the outage in the winter, the whole thing was 4 gigawatts of customers they turned off. So these are not small little turnoffs. And so this process continues. There's more outages and more shedding of generation. And that's what we see reflected back over here on the graph. That this little area of red, to me, it seems like it should be bigger, like it should be this huge area, but that right there is almost 200 billion in damages, more than Katrina, 70 deaths, 4.5 million customers, 20 gigawatts worth of load shed is all right there. It's those 3 days where it couldn't meet capacity. And you can see things coming back a bit to meet capacity, and this is how things sort of came back on the 18th, and still the prices were quite high. So there's a lot of implications. Why did this happen in Texas? And what can be done moving forward. But hopefully that is illustrative of what happens in Texas and is hopefully helpful for you understanding what exactly happens. So I will stop there. Thank you so much. And Don and Ruth, I would love to get your professional take or your more industry take on the presentation and other topics.